what do you really know? We may think that we know a lot as kids. We may think that we know more than our parents. We may think that we know so much, but we really don't. We may know a little bit about this slang and how to talk and what people are doing today, but do we truly really know what it's like to be mature and to have your own? We really don't. We really don't. We're still depending on our parents at 12 to guide us, to lead us, and to get us to where we need to be. And for me, that was a very hard time simply because I didn't have it. I didn't have it together. And at that time, there were, I'll say, young guys, teenagers that were hitting on me at that point. And so I don't even know how to navigate that, because I was at that point, we hadn't had those talks yet. And so I have made it at the age that I am, and my kids, they're above that age now. But I made it a point to let them know this, and this, as they have grown into that age and have gone past that age, what is right and what is wrong to do at such a young age, and how to face different situations. Because again, we think we know because we're like, well, mom, dad, you're not here with us at school. You're not here. You're not doing this. And they may have done that back in your day, but this is how we do it now. But baby, it's still the same thing. Y'all just call it something different. It's still the same exact thing, but you guys call it something different. And so again, that was a very, I want to use the word tumultuous time in my life, because again, I was a preteen and had been through, I've had people pass away in my life during that time, but I wasn't close with them. I wasn't close with them. And so I was trying to navigate things. I was trying to smile. I was trying to make everybody else feel comfortable and feel good. And I became a people pleaser because I didn't want to upset anybody, because if I upset somebody, then they may not want me here anymore. They may not want to keep me. So let me just be quiet and just tell them what they want to hear. That's the best way I can say it. Tell them what they want to hear, even though that wasn't what I really felt in my heart, right? And so again, because I was only 12 and I didn't really, I understood that death meant that somebody was gone and they weren't coming back, but I hadn't been, the best way that I could say it is I had not been prepped properly for this. And I think it's because everyone thought that she would pull through, which leads me into going into the healing through the journey. In the beginning of that book, I speak about how the inevitable was happening, but everybody was walking around like it wasn't going to happen. I knew that my mom was going to pass. And I know you're probably like, how did you know that? Because there's no way you could have possibly known that. Well, the reason why I knew is because maybe 2 years prior, exactly 2 years prior, I saw it in a dream. The Lord had shown it to me in a dream. And I had been dreaming, as far as I can remember back, maybe 5-6 years old, having dreams that probably would have scared most kids, dreams that would have probably caused most people to possibly lose their mind. But at 10 years old, I had a dream that my mom was going to pass. And at first I didn't understand it, because I was like, okay, what does that mean? And then when I turned 11, I had the exact same dream again, that she basically went somewhere and she never came back. And again, I did not understand that at the time. It wasn't until I was maybe in college that I understood what that dream meant. And I didn't share that dream with anybody. I didn't even share with them that my mom had me to come into the bathroom when I was 11. It was during the fall. I think it was like October, November. And she was like, do you feel this? And then I felt under her armpit, under her arm. And it was in her armpit. And I felt it. And I was like, yeah, it feels like a ball or a knot or something. And we both just looked at each other and she just told me to be quiet. Like she's like, shh, don't say nothing. And I was like, okay. And because my mama, that for me was like my best friend like that, I kept anything that she said to me to myself, because I'm like, oh, I can't tell nobody what my mama said. And so I kept that to myself. And it was April of 1996 when she finally, she had been going to the doctor and different things like that, and they were saying that it was something else, because we're from a small town, and so most of the time the doctors, they be right, but they could possibly be wrong. And I guess because they hadn't seen this before in anybody, they just assumed that it was a stomach virus based off of the symptoms that she was having. And so they was treating her for a stomach virus, or they was treating her for the stomach flu. Like they was treating her for different things like that, dealing with her stomach, but it had nothing to do with her stomach at all. And so it was April of 96 when she finally went to a specialist. And right when she was leaving, I told my brother, I said, hey, mom's not gonna make it. She's gonna die. And that's when he was ready to fight me. Like, shut up, you don't say stuff like that. Don't be saying that, that's not true. And I was like, okay, but it's true. And so when she came back, because that doctor's office was like maybe 30 minutes from where we lived, she came back and I could see that she just found out something. And my aunt took us home and she told us that night that the doctors said that she had cancer, and different things like that. Because I think this was actually her follow-up, because she had already been to that doctor and they did some biopsies and different stuff like that and found out that she had breast cancer. And so still, I didn't understand it, because again, I'm only 12 years old, so I understand that people get sick. I understand that people do pass away, but it's not really clicking that she's really going to pass away. And later on, they ended up telling her that she had 6 months because she had stage 4 cancer. And it was rough. And so I went through all these different things. And like I said, I never told anybody. It wasn't until I was grown that I told my family. I said, well, the Lord, I saw it in a dream. Because at the time, I didn't know it was the Lord showing it to me. I thought I just had a vivid imagination as a kid. I thought that I had a vivid imagination. And so that's what She Was Only 12 is all about, right? So I go into all these details of what she went through, how I felt at the time, and then how I felt at the time that I was writing the book, because I wrote the book when I was 33. And so I ended up writing another book called Healing Through the Journey. And this speaks about how the inevitable was happening, and we all just looked at it like, okay, she's gonna make it. And we all were praying that she would make it, but she didn't make it. And I was angry with God. I was angry with God because I'm like, you took the most important person in my life. You took everything from me. And so now I hate you. And so I went through years of hating God. Still, this is the thing. I was still going to church. This is the part that many people probably like, girl, you were still doing what? I was still going to church. I was still singing whenever I was in the choir. I was still singing. I still believed, but I was angry. I was an angry, hurt child. And everything that I knew, again, was in my mom. I didn't know anything else. And I wasn't prepared, even though I possibly should have been prepared. And I probably should have shared that dream with someone so that we could have all been prepared, right? But I wasn't prepared for what was about to happen. And when she passed, it was, everything went haywire. I wasn't a bad kid. I just decided that I was just going to do my own thing in a way, but still be obedient in some ways, but be disobedient in other ways. And that didn't really get me far. And I became a people pleaser. So, for instance, if I did something wrong and I didn't want my aunt to be mad at me, I would just lie to her, like, because I didn't want her to be mad at me. But she already knew the truth. She already knew the truth. And what I learned about her was that if she's asking you a question, she already know the answer. She just want to know, will you be honest? And will you be honest? Will you tell the truth? And so that was hard, because I didn't realize that I was digging a deeper and deeper hole for myself. I was allowing myself to be used by the enemy to just do whatever, whenever, however I wanted to do it, because I was angry. I let anger decide how I would move throughout my day. I allowed anger to decide whether or not I was going to be a good kid or a bad kid. And again, I wasn't bad, but it just was, I was being bad. I had bad tendencies, and I didn't know how to express myself, my emotions. I didn't know how to express that I was angry. I didn't know how to just be honest about my feelings when it came to my mom, because I was so busy trying to make everybody else happy and cheerful. And well, you know, that was her brothers and sisters, and they was with her longer, and I was trying to make everybody happy because everybody was so sad, because she was the oldest girl of 9 children. She was the oldest girl. And so she was like almost like a mom to them as well. And so I always tried to make them happy, but it really wasn't making me happy. I would smile, but I wasn't happy. I was sad because no one talked to me about what it means to lose a parent. And I guess it's because they hadn't lost their parents, so they really didn't know how to talk to a 12-year-old. It was just like, go to school, do what you gotta do, make good grades, and that's it. It was almost like everybody forgot about her. We didn't really talk about her that much anymore. And so it was like everybody had forgotten. And that made me even more angry because I was like, so we just gonna act like she wasn't here for 36 years. Like, we gonna act like she wasn't here for 12 years. And then I had some people who wanted me to call my aunt my mom, and I was like, hold up, pump your brakes, she ain't my mama. Not anything against her, but I know who my mom is. She's not here anymore, so I can't call her mom. She's my aunt. And so it wasn't until I got older that I realized they wasn't doing that to be harmful, but I guess they was trying to do it to make me feel better. But that's not the thing that you do. If the child ends up calling the aunt or whoever mom, let them make that choice. Let them make that choice if they want to do that. You don't have to force them. Don't force them into doing something that makes them feel uncomfortable. Because I was like, I'm gonna tell you exactly how I said it. I was like, I ain't calling her that. Again, nothing against my aunt, but I think it hurt her feelings. And I don't even think she cared if I did that or not, but how I said it hurt her feelings, and I could see it on her face. But at the time I was like, I'm not gonna call you that because you're not my mom. And so today, as I was preparing to get on here, and I know I just gave y'all a whole little rundown, but you got to go get the book. So the first one is She Was Only 12, and I said the byproduct of that is Healing Through the Journey, because it goes into deeper depth of how I was able to heal from all of that and to deal with all the trauma and the drama that came behind it, because I was still dealing with the hurt of a 12-year-old, right? So you have to go get it. You have to go get it. She Was Only 12. Read that one first so that you can get a little understanding, and then go read Healing Through the Journey, because that book gives you all the scriptures that the Lord began to give me as I was healing. He was dealing with me in forgiveness and dealing with forgiving him for something that my mom actually was asking for. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of that. So as I was working on forgiveness and dealing with that and being healed and delivered from all of those things, the Lord began to show me. He took me back to when I was 12, really to 11, because I turned 12 before she found out. And then she passed in that same year. She found out in like March, April, and she passed away in November, the week of Thanksgiving of 96. But the Lord took took me back to when she was doing chemo and began to show me her asking that she was tired and she didn't want to do this anymore. And I remember hearing her say that, but at the time I was like, but I'm mad at the Lord. But the Lord showed me. She was asking for it. She was asking for peace. She was asking to not be here anymore. Like, she was asking the Lord to just take her away from all of this because she couldn't do it anymore. Because she even said to me, what did she say? I'm trying to remember exactly. She said to me that chemo was like they were draining all of the life out of her and then putting it back in. She said it felt like they was draining all the life out of her and then putting it back into her. And I was like, oh, and so I remember that to this day. Like, she said it felt like they was taking her life and then giving the life back to her, and she hated the way it made her feel, and she didn't like it. And so I went through all of that healing. I went through all the different things. I went through the forgiveness. I went through deliverance. Let me tell you, it was necessary. I had never been through deliverance before. I went through deliverance for the very first time, and it was so much I didn't even know. I didn't even know, but I went through it 3-4 years ago for the very first time. And I'm so glad I did, because when I walked outside that day and I looked up at the sky and I was like, oh my God, this is how the sky's supposed to look. Because I still had this film over my eyes. I had these scales on my eyes of what the world looked like, how people looked, and what it was that people said about, like, my ears were cleared up, and it was so much that happened. So it's so important that we go through deliverance and we go through healing so that we can get to where we need to be. This is called Facing Purpose Radio. We have to make sure that we are doing the necessary work so that we can walk in our purpose wholeheartedly, and we can walk in it boldly, confidently, knowing that God is with us. And see, I wasn't able to face my purpose at first. Like, I was doing when I got older and I started understanding, okay, this is what God is saying. And I began to build my own relationship with the Lord, not based off of what my family said, but based off of what me and the Lord was having together, the relationship that I was having with the Lord, my prayer time with the Lord, my fasting, my praying, all of that. It wasn't until I began to step out and do the work for myself. Yes, our families can help us and they can push us, but sometimes they may not know the right words to say. They may not feel like they have exactly what is needed, but they do what they can do. They try their best to train you up in the way that you should go, so that when you grow old, you do not depart from it. And so my family did the very best that they could do, but I also didn't make it easy either. So I'm grateful for all that they did for me. I'm grateful for all of those things. So today, as I was preparing for this moment, I heard the word orphan. And I was like, orphan? Who's an orphan? And the Lord began to show me that that's what I felt. Even though I had family, even though my dad was not deceased. And then I also found out that there's more than one definition for orphan. Most people like to look at orphan as a person or a child who has lost both of their parents. I was about to say every last one of their parents, but both of their parents, both their mom and their dad. But they said there's another type of orphan. Someone whose parent may have had an addiction, whose parent was not responsible, a parent who just, basically left them to fend for themselves, but they were still alive. And so for me, I was considered an orphan. The Lord said, you was like an orphan. That's how it felt. In a matter of speaking, it was like you was an orphan, because even though you had your aunt, and even though your dad was alive, you still felt out of place, because there was many times where I literally felt like I was adopted. I felt like I was adopted. I felt like This can't be the family that I was supposed to be born in. Y'all, I know you're probably like, this lady right here is crazy. But no, that's how I felt, because I felt out of sorts. I felt like I wasn't in the right place. I felt like I didn't have the right footing. I felt like I didn't have foundation. It was so much going on because, again, my identity, everything was in my mom. At this time, I didn't know that I have identity in Christ Jesus. Like, I didn't know. I didn't know that that's where it was. I just assumed, because my mom left, that basically I shouldn't be here either. Now, I didn't try to commit suicide or anything like that, but I just felt like I wasn't supposed to be in that family. I felt like they should have just gave me up for adoption instead. But my mom willed me to my aunt. She willed me to my aunt. And so I felt like an orphan. I felt like I had been abandoned. I felt like I had been left out to fend for myself, even though that was not the case. And so when I started hearing the word orphan today, I was like, Lord, I don't really like that word. I don't really like that word. However, again, that's how I felt. And the Lord was showing me that's how a lot of us feel even now as adults. We feel like orphans. We feel left out. We feel like we've been abandoned. We feel like God has abandoned us. We feel like there is no one who cares or loves us. We feel like there's nobody that could ever give us what we truly need. And the Lord was showing me, but I will be a father to the fatherless. I will be a mother to the motherless. So you're not out there by yourself. It just feels like that because right now you cannot see one foot in front of the other. You can't see. It's so much fog. It's so much going on that you can't see the love of God, that you can't see the love of your family, that you can't see the love of your husband. Even in your marriage, you feel like an orphan. You feel abandoned. You feel like there is no one or anything that can understand who you are right now in this very moment. And God is wanting me to tell you that you are not by yourself. You are not alone. He is with you. He is with you. He is with you. God is with you. And I know I gave you all this story and you're like, girl, you gave us all of that just to get us to this point. Yes, because I felt alone. I found my identity in my mother, which I was never supposed to do. I was supposed to find my identity in Christ Jesus. And that's where we mess up. We put our identity in other people. We try to find our identity in everything but God. And God is saying, but I am with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. When mother and father leave you, I am with you. When you feel all alone, you're not alone. I am with you. When you feel like there's nowhere else you can turn, I am with you. Just turn to me. Just lean on me. Just depend on me. I got you. Even in that marriage where you feel like you've been abandoned, you feel like you've been left alone, you feel like you've been left by yourself, you feel like you're raising the kids by yourself, God is saying, I am with you. Lo, I will be with you always until the end of time, until the end of this world. I will be with you. Jesus loves you. The Lord loves you. He cares about your well-being. He cares about your mental health. He cares about your physical health. He cares about your spiritual health. You don't have to seek out an identity through people. You don't have, and because that's one thing that I did. I was like, well, if they doing this, then I'm gonna do this. I wanted to be like everybody else. I wanted to do what everybody else was doing, but I was not called to do that. I was called to stand out. I was called to make a difference. And God is saying, you've been called to make a difference. You've been called to go out and spread the gospel. You've been called. You can be healed. You can be set free. You can be delivered. But you first have to want it. You have to get sick and tired of being sick and tired. It's time for you to step out and be all that God has called you to be. No more hiding behind your trauma. No more hiding behind what happened to you. Yes, it happened to you. It happened to you and for you. No, it didn't feel good. No, it wasn't right. But because you've gone through it and you're now wanting to go through it and heal through it and be delivered through it, God is saying your story, your testimony, everything about you is going to help somebody else come out on the other side and know that they can make it. Yes, you may have lost your mother at a young age. Yes, you may have felt like everybody abandoned you. Yes, you may have felt like everybody lied to you because they said that they was going to do this, and this if your mom passed, but they didn't do it. Yes, it may have happened, but it's okay because I'm with you. I got you. I'm taking care of you. I love you. You're my daughter. You're my son. I got you. But I need you to understand that the way that you're going right now is not the way. Where you're going, how you're doing this now is not the way. There's so much greater for you. I have so much greater for you. But you have to want it. You have to want it. You have to want it more than you want to stay in this place. I stayed there long enough. I dealt with depression. I dealt with self-hatred. I dealt with self-condemnation. I've dealt with all those things, but it got to the point where I was like, there's got to be more. There's got to be something greater than this. There has to be something greater. And I thank God that there was greater. I thank God that even though I had hate for him, he didn't hate me. He loved me. He loved me until I loved him. And he still loves me now, and he still loves you now. Even if you're having that moment where you're like, I just hate God. But God is like, no, let me show you what it really is. Let me take the blinders off of you. Let me take those scales off your eyes so that you can see where the love truly comes from. It doesn't come from the enemy, but it comes from me. That conviction that you feel when you're getting ready to do something that you're not supposed to do, it comes from me because I love you and I don't want you to go down that road. It comes from me because I want you to understand how much I love you, that I gave my only begotten son that you could be healed so that you could be saved. For those who believe will be saved. You don't have to do this alone. You're never alone. Even though it looks like it, you're never alone. I am with you, and I will never leave you nor forsake you. God is with you. You just have to say, God, I'm yours. God, I believe that Jesus died and rose from the grave with all power in his hand. And I want to be healed. I want to be set free. I want to be delivered. I want to walk a new way. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of fighting like this. I want to fight spiritually how I'm supposed to. I don't want to keep fighting with my fists, but I want to fight with prayer. I want to fight with my spiritual armor. I want to fight. And I want to do it the way that you say do it, and not the way that I've been taught to do it by others, to fight with my fist. But Lord, I want to pray and mountains begin to move and crumble before me. God, I want something new. I don't want this life anymore. I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to move like this anymore. I'm ready for greater. I'm ready for greater. And so I just pray that what the Lord has given me to share tonight, even if you're like, this didn't even make sense to me, but in this moment, you're like, you know what? It is coming all together. This is why she went, okay, she felt like this, she felt like that, and now this is where God has her. Look at her now. She could talk about it without stumbling. She can talk about it without crying. She could talk about it with conviction. She could talk about it with confidence. She could talk about it with boldness because she's done the work so that she can face purpose, so that she can walk in her purpose. And no, it's not always comfortable, and no, it's not perfect, but she's doing the work and she's done the work so that she can walk in her purpose wholeheartedly and allow the Lord to use her like he's never used her before. So again, I pray that this testimony, that this message that the Lord gave me to share with you blesses you, and that it will begin to renew your spirit and to renew your strength, and it pushes you towards God. Not towards me, but towards God. It pushes you to go and seek God even more. Like, okay, God, she said this, and this. Well, I'm gonna need you to break that thing down for me a little bit more. Lord, I need a little bit more information. I need you to give me some revelation, some understanding, some comfort, some wisdom. Lord, I need more. And so I just pray that it bless you, and that you will continue to allow the Lord to speak to you, and that you will continue to allow the Lord to heal you. Give God permission to go in and do what is necessary to get you to a place where you can face purpose, where you can walk in purpose, where you can be confident in who God has called you to be. Amen. Amen.